Are you ready to become awesomer? Hello everyone, this is Umar Hamid, your host, and welcome to the No Limit Selling Podcast, where industry leaders share their tips, strategies, and advice on how to make you better, stronger, faster. Get ready for another episode. Hey everyone, today I have the privilege of having Dr. Robert Peterson Ph.D. joining me today. He's the Dean's Distinguished Professor at the Northern Illinois University and the founding member of the Sales Enablement Society. Rob, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Thank you. Great to be here. It's great to be wherever Umar is, you know?
The reason I was so excited to talk to you is you are grooming the next generation of salespeople coming into the marketplace. I really wanted to get some keen insights on, what drives their behavior. How can companies manage this new sales force coming in so we can maximize their effectiveness? Because they are effective.
Right. Yeah. Well, here's a cool thing about the next generation, the Zs or the Zoomers. They're the coolest generation ever. No one's ever done what we're doing. Yada, yada, yada. It's the same thing every generation. And so, and the same things that we, the millennials were taken out to the woodshed for, the Zs are being, they don't listen. Where's the motivation? They don't take notes, yada, yada, yada. And surprising, Umar, that was us too back in the day, correct?
What's interesting is I have these defining moments in my life. And one of the defining moments was this guy called Mr. Higdon. He was our English teacher. He was like a radical. So he didn't teach anything until the entire year except for just talk to the students. And it was like, I need an exam done or something at the end. But one of the things he did was he read a letter explaining the exact same thing that you are talking about. We're going to hell in a handbasket, the next generation, they're lazy, they don't listen, they don't do this. He said, can you date this? And it was like, sure, like the 1950s, the 1940s. And it was an ancient letter they found in BC era from one father writing to another father. And it was like, nothing changes. The human condition is the same.
Correct.
So tell me what you're seeing with this next generation. What are the things that really drive them?
Being a college professor, I'll share some anecdotal stuff, but certainly, we're numbers people, we're research people. So I grabbed some stuff from Gartner that showed the difference between at the same age element. They asked millennials and they asked Zs the same question. And the series of questions, and the measures were that 21 points higher were the Zs on tenacity.
Really?
Once I set my mind to do something, I do not stop or give up, regardless of the obstacles. Versus the millennial generation, 21 points higher on that measure, and the 17. Higher on I always strive to obtain expert skills or knowledge. So those are different. Those are statistically different between the generations. Now, at the same time, they were 43 points less. It is important to me to have fun. And they were 43 points less. It's important to me to have fun and forget about my problems. That is not this generation. So there definitely are differences. Again, these are sweeping generalities. Everybody is slightly different. The human condition is different. In fact, if you look at what the Zs have grown up with, and again, the Zs are, as we sit here in 2020, the Zs are generally 20, max will be 24. Generally, the first end is 23, all the way down to they're still in middle school, getting out of grade school. So that's the age bracket. But if you look at those kids, a lot of them came to, growing up in their households, it was 2008 where people were losing their house. People were making sure that they had food to put on the table.
Right.
So that condition, when you're 7, 8, 9, 10, it affects you. So the idea, and the parenting skills and whatnot. The
Depression era people, right? That came
Yes.
through that had a different view on what the world look like?
Well, I'd see that. I mean, on this measure where it says, "Hey, fun is not is so much different than my millennial brothers and sisters ahead of me." That is huge. That is okay. I'm just going to hunker down and do this bunker. I'm going to hide in my bunker here and make sure that I am expert. I have the tenacity, because I don't think life is as much about fun versus the last generation. Again, we asked that, but the survey asked that in 2018, and they asked millennials in 2010 of the same age. So that maturation process will change a little, but I think you would say that there's a difference, that this coming Zs are a little bit more serious than the previous generation.
Brilliant. So some of these young warriors.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that was another interesting difference between the generations. In 1979, 60% of us had, and I was part of that, 60% of teens had a job. Now you fast forward to 2018, 20%. So in let's just round it off for those listening. In the 80, 60% of teens held a job. Now it's about 20% in 2020. That's a totally different way to go through your teen years, about responsibility, paycheck, yada, yada, yada. So that will be brought with you. The idea of showing up, paying your dues, having responsibility. I mean, some of the things I asked the students to give me an annotated resume. What did you learn at each one of these jobs? And I didn't do anything of this and that. It's like, did you show up? Yes. Did you do what you were told? Yes. Did you interface with customers and make them happy? When there was a problem, these are skills that if you don't have a job because you're at home playing sports all day or playing video games, these are some of the things you're going to have to learn somewhere, and it's going to be your first, potentially your first full-time job, which is a little bit of a change for the marketplace.
What are you hearing back from your students that are going out to do internships? What are they reporting back? Like, where are their struggles? Where don't employers value them?
I would say that it's much more positive than back in the day, because we would do a lot of clerical stuff. Now, you have to outline what you want this person to do, and this person generally gets to do some meatier things than we did. But they're learning the same thing. If here's my phone, they use their phone for this. The idea of doing this is different, and so when they're asked to do that, there's a learning curve. The idea of how to leave a professional voicemail, not something that they've been schooled in. When you and I were growing up, the phone rang, it was attached to the wall, it had a cord, and you answered it because
And a
long cord. You answered it because you didn't know who was calling. You didn't know if it was the nurse at the school calling because your kid was sick, or it was aluminum siding guy. So you answered the phone.
Right.
And so, and we, in my house, because my dad was a career salesman, we had a regimen on how we were asked to answer the phone. And if you answered the phone and didn't take a message, you were no longer allowed to talk on the phone. So some of these things that we've lost because of progress, and trust me, progress is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I tell stories about the students, it's like, when I left the office, I had a roll of quarters and I knew what phone booths that I was going to hit in order to call back to the office. And they're like, oh, all right. And in the winter where, I was north. And so you'd find the phone booths that were inside. They had the door to close. They're like, where are you from? So they have some technological advantages that employers love. In fact, I just heard a story the other day that there was from a faculty member at another university who said her son was asked, he was a finance major, come to our office. We want you to do this and blah, blah, blah. So he's sitting there, says, well, why does everybody, get these reports from the stores? Why don't I just make it an Excel sheet, and it would go a lot faster? And we're like, all right, go ahead. Well, in doing that, he found that for the last 20 years, there was an algorithm mistake, a math mistake. And so it was giving all the store managers more money, a bigger comp bonus than the agreement. Whoever wrote it down did it wrong. So when he put it into Excel, he wasn't very popular amongst the store owners, because the company said, well, we've been overpaying for a decade or more. But that is, some of the things that the younger generation will bring is like, why do you do it that way? Why don't you use technology, or just have a different perspective? So, excuse me. So it's a trade-off between what the employers are doing and where they're starting with the kids and what skill sets. I mean, some of you might have seen that YouTube video where the kids are on an old rotary phone. They're going to make a call and they can't figure out how to do it, and we all laugh.
Right.
Well, before this call went, I was getting reverb out of my microphone. I was getting the sound was too low. I couldn't figure it out. So I called my 17-year-old technical advisor. He came in here within 18 seconds. He had fixed it.
Seconds.
So so the difference is, I mean, one of the things we've done is we've rubriced these kids to death. And I see it in my classes where I'm the bridge before they get out. I teach a senior level business to business. The kids are making phone calls, or they're leaving voicemails, talking to gatekeepers. And I give them a wide berth and say, here's the goal. This is what we need to do. What are you going to do? And they're waiting for me to plan everything out. The unfortunate part of this generation, and they'll fix it on their own, but it'll have to be fixed, is, well, all their play dates were scheduled. I mean, if you and I wanted to play with someone, we walked down the street or we rode our bike, we knocked on the door.
Hey, what are you doing? Yeah.
We had to talk to mom or dad, and they would say, oh, Bobby can't come out and play, or whatever, or he's not home. But we had an interaction. That's not as much today. And the rubrics that my students just want to know, what did I do? What was exactly? I'm like, look, your customers are not going to give you all the PowerPoint slides for a 16-week sales cycle, because it's not even going to be 16 weeks. It could be 1 week. It could be a year. And when I tell them, like, your sales cycle, depending on, where you are, it could be over a year. They're like, really? It would take a year? Yes. And I said, in some industries, it could take a couple years, or large ticket items, to build that trust, to run out of the other contract and whatnot. So, I think the creativity, or the ability not to follow somebody's rubric who they've handed to you, is something that employers would have to further develop. One of the other things, you just got me thinking. They're definitely a technology, not across the board, but they're definitely technology driven, and their brain is fragmented into, in 2020, now we're doing TikToks. Okay.
Yes.
They want a visual. They don't want to sit in a room where we talk too much. They need a visual stimulation for their brain. That's how they've grown up. They want it to be a YouTube type experience where, hey, I'm going to watch this for 4 minutes. We're going to do that. And then I'm going to click on another one. And I'm going to watch something else for 3 minutes. So our L&D, our learning and development, and how do we bring these young folks along, it's definitely different. And obviously a lot of companies get that, but some still don't see the multi-generational from, boomers and Xers and millennials and the Zs. They don't learn the same way. And they don't remember in the same way. So if going back to your original question was, what do they need to do, is they need to be cognizant of how the young folks chunk in their brain and learn things, which is definitely different. I've got I'm looking for anything around my desk, anything with words on it. Like, Dr. P, that's a lot of words. That's a lot of words. Yes, you're going to have to read, my man, in order to make it in this world. So
there was some research done in the past where they said, okay, people fall into 4 groups or styles of learning. There are people that are if you don't tell me why I need to learn this, what's the importance of this, that they'll just shut down and won't participate in that learning. And the second quadrant are people that tell me what to do. What's the process that you want me to do? And that's the most important part. The third part, where I live, is shut the hell up and let me go play with it and let me experience it. And then you got the fourth group that were the what ifs. Like, sure, this works in Illinois, but would it work in California? Which you're going, why are you thinking like that? Like, why wouldn't it? But they're the what if kind of people. So is that still true in this generation?
I absolutely agree that there's still a natural diffusion or distribution bell curve of some variety. But I think they they fall more into the first quadrant that you mentioned. Mention it one more time.
So why? Why
I can
should I
spin
pay
off it.
attention to this? They need to know that in order to devote time to it.
They want to know why. I mean, back in our day, we were just told to do something. We just go did
Yep.
it, and we figured it out. If we didn't know. Now they want to know why, and there's some benefits to that. It's like, hey, why are we doing this? Because it goes back to that same story I just told about the Excel spreadsheet. Like, hey, why are we doing it this way? Oh, there's a better way. Sometimes I have to convince them of connect the why. And once in a while, and with my own kids, I'm sorry, Dad, because I said so. I mean, at a certain point, you're just like, just move your fanny. I'm not going to explain because it'll take 10 minutes. I'll explain everything.
It's a 2-minute job.
Oh,
Yeah.
or just friggin' do it. But this generation, I think, has moved more into the why, but also not just because why am I learning this, but why are we doing this? Why do I want to work for this particular company? And how does that represent my value system or meld with my value system? And what is my going back to that rubric, I get done with something and they want immediate feedback, which is a different category, but yeah, how'd I do? It's like, and after a while, they kind of realized, who I am and how I work. And I'm old school. I mean, I worked 100% commission on the phone for years selling stock market quotation systems. Before that, I was commission against draw against commission in the business form. So you need to move. You need to go. And I will explain, but I want to see some ownership and not just a lemming doing what I tell you to do, because you're not going to earn very much money if I tell you what to do and then you do it. I need you to own it and come back to me, the manager, whatnot, says, hey, this is not working. Here's 2 ideas. And the 2 ideas could be totally wrong or unprofitable. But the fact that you at least thought about it, I want to reward that behavior.
Nice.
Because typically we've been telling these and structuring these kids' lives. So the why to me sometimes is frustrating, and it will be to any company. It's a good question.
How important is it to this generation not to make a mistake or be seen as not good enough? Is it the same as it always was, or are they more sensitive to it?
I think they have a level of perfection that they demand, and it's not perfection, but a level of being right that is certainly higher than when we were that age, because they have unlimited access to everything, to all answers. I mean, I ask Alexa a million things. I mean, sometimes it's routine. Hey, is so-and-so still alive? Or, hey, I'm in Chicago. Hey, when do the Blackhawks play? But I know I can get the right answer very easily at my fingertips. Back in our day, it was just kind of vague. I mean, going back to the old days, we used to go pick up my dad at the airport. I tell the students this is, well, it's always good to have someone at one location because you have a driver. I would hop out to help, to go greet him and get his bags and bring him to the car. I knew where the car was because, the cops weren't as bad back in those days because it was pre 9/11. I said, yeah, there would be somebody that just in case all heck broke loose, you could call somebody, and somebody at home would call and field from the other person says, oh, they're waiting for you at so-and-so. Or the whole idea of an address saying, Umar, please meet your party at lower level carousel 4.
Right.
I mean, we don't do that anymore.
Please come
Everybody
to the right
is perfectly connected. Everybody's perfectly connected with near perfect information. And my wife is going to have a procedure later this week, and she sent me a link. And I watched it. I heard another doctor talk about it. I actually watched a training video or a video on how they were doing this. And I'm like, holy cow, this is just amazing back in the day. So I think the why is more important. I think the asking more questions, but they've grown up in a world where if you really want to know anything, you can get that. And I think I didn't pay the rent. So I think my light just went out here. Was helping not to cast a shadow. All right, good. We'll continue on.
Rob, thanks so much for shedding light on this, the next generation of sales talent coming into the marketplace. We're going to put all your links and social media and websites and stuff on the show notes. Just before we part company, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, I mean, if you go to Robert Peterson Ph.D., Robert M. Peterson. If you go onto LinkedIn, that's a great way to find me. As of 2020, if you want to email me, it's pretty easy at Peterson at NIU, Northern Illinois University, NIU.edu. We're the second oldest sales program in the country. And if there's one other thing I wanted to tell you is that these kids are amazing, but they're not without some China doll syndrome. 82. This was from our university. 82% said they feel overwhelmed. 78% said they're exhausted. 64 said they're feeling sad, and that's from the National College Health Assessment at our university. So even with all this resiliency, they have a feeling it's like, oh, I feel overwhelmed, and coping skills and whatnot. So I don't think that they're really China dolls, that they're going to be broken into pieces, but that's what they're feeling. So, bringing them out is that's my job. I'm the last speed bump before they head to you. And I encourage them, love them, rough them up, give them a kick in the seat, saying, let's go out there and do amazing things with the time we have here on Earth.
Bob, thanks so much for doing that. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Good deal. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at nolimitselling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.